What's going on YouTube world? Austin Zay back here with another YouTube video, and in this video we're going to be talking about the 5 most popular ways that people actually invest into real estate. Recently, real estate has actually passed the stock market as the most popular form of investing. According to a survey that Bankrate did, about 31% of people prefer real estate investing to be their long-term investment strategy. And if you're watching this and you might have grown up thinking that you have to have a lot of money to invest into real estate, maybe your parents or your grandparents taught you that you had to save up for a really long time just in order to have enough money to get a down payment on a property. With so many people investing into real estate in 2020, you might be wondering, where in the world are people coming up with all this money to actually go out and purchase real estate? And we're going to break all that down in this video, so make sure you stay to the very end, okay? And if you haven't already, just go ahead and just smash that like button, as it really does help me out with the YouTube algorithm. But again, we're going to dive in right now to how you can actually get started in real estate investing for beginners. While it has actually been said that about 90% of millionaires did so through real estate investing, a lot of those investors, literally hundreds of thousands of investors, actually started out at one point or another with little to no money. Now the difference is a lot of those people are investing in real estate in a lot of different ways, and there's not really just one way to invest into real estate. There's literally hundreds of different ways that you can get started investing into real estate. And today we're going to break down my top 5, the top 5 popular ways to invest into real estate that I truly believe if you're not doing, you should be by the end of the video. So we're going to break down every different strategy. We're going to talk about all the pros and the cons to each individual strategy. And by the end of the video, you're really going to understand exactly what strategy is going to work best for you and what will really fit your life and your lifestyle needs and the amount of money that you have. Because regardless of the method, real estate actually is proven to provide more predictable and more consistent returns than the stock market or maybe a bond. So as we dive into it here, I want you to think about 2 different things. Number 1 are your goals, and number 2 is how much money you actually have to work with. However, keep in mind that you can always double dip, and you can use multiple of the different strategies that we're going to talk about, and you can even use a strategy as a stepping stone to get to the ideal strategy that you eventually want to do. Okay, so the very first method that we're going to talk about is a really popular method, and that is actually called the buy and hold, okay? And that is probably the least complicated method out of all of them, but again, make sure you stay to the end of the video because there are going to be a couple of more that we talk about that are very lucrative. And the concept here is actually very simple. It is exactly how it sounds, okay? You literally buy a property and you hold on to the property. And typically for a fairly long time. The goal here is not to turn around and put the property right back onto the market to make a profit. And off the top of your head, you can probably think of multiple different people that actually utilize the strategy that we're talking about. This strategy actually ends up making you a landlord, okay? You end up actually buying a property, and maybe you do a value add or you fix it up, and we'll talk about that in a little while, but the goal is to rent out the property, to actually move a tenant into the property and keep it for the long haul. And a lot of the people that do this end up using a property management company. And this strategy is very good for people that want to get into real estate, but they don't want to do anything too complicated. And at the end of the day, they don't really want to do a ton of stuff that requires a lot of time and energy. This is a very good strategy for people that have a little bit of liquid cash and they want to take that cash and park it into something that'll provide more interest over time, right? Rather than just have it sit in their savings account at 1% interest on a good day. Plus, they get to take advantage of all the amazing tax benefits of owning real estate, such as appreciation, depreciation, mortgage interest tax deductions from your income, deferral of capital gains, and there's literally so many more that we could talk about. The thing that I really love about actually owning real estate over the long haul is that you get to build a portfolio of assets that'll pay you over and over again. And that is something that I talk a lot about on my channel, where we talk about passive income and we really break that down. And in my honest opinion, real estate can be one of the most amazing ways to actually earn that true passive income. And if you buy it at a good price, you can really make a good amount of money if you were to ever go sell it in an actual seller's market. And I always talk about on my channel how you make money in the buy. And a lot of people don't understand that concept. So definitely make sure you just smash the like button. You go check out some of my other videos. But look, at the end of the day, you make money in the buy. So if you buy it right and you rent it out over the long haul, you take advantage of all of the amazing benefits of owning real estate, you could actually end up cash flowing on it month after month after month, and then eventually sell it in a seller's market and actually make a bunch of money. There's obviously so many benefits of owning real estate and just holding on to it and renting it out for the long haul. And one of my favorites, and we already talked about it, was appreciation. But let's dive into appreciation just a tiny bit more before we move on. And I actually found an article that CNBC did looking at home prices, median home prices in the US since 1940. And in 1940, in the United States, the median home price was $2,938. Now, obviously, that is not adjusted for inflation, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. By the time you get to 1970, it's only $17,000, and by the time you get to 2000, it's $119,600. And adjusted for inflation in 1940, that same piece of real estate would still only have been $30,600. And when you fast forward to today in 2020, that number is all the way at $199,000. Okay, so to put in perspective for you, by just buying real estate and holding on to it for the long haul, there are so many different ways that you actually end up making money. Obviously, your tenant is paying down the mortgage, so after a long enough period of time, you end up owning that property free and clear, and all you really did was end up putting the down payment on it. So when you really look at it, you end up making a lot more money than just the cash flow. And I know a lot of real estate investors, they just end up looking at the amount of money that the tenant is paying every month, and they want to make sure that they're cash flowing. In other words, they want to make sure that the tenant is able to cover the mortgage payment and cover the principal and the interest and the property taxes. But what I like to look at are all of the other factors and how over the long haul, you end up making a heck of a lot more money than just what the tenant ends up paying. The only real con that I can think of when it comes to buying and holding rental properties is that it's kind of boring, okay? There's not a lot going on, and I know you've probably seen a bunch of videos that you probably thought to yourself at one point or another in your life, or somebody told you that owning rental properties is a complete pain in the butt, and people will call you at midnight because their toilet is broken, and I'm here to tell you that it doesn't actually happen as often as you think it does. Moving along to second up on our list, it happens to be fix and flips. Have you ever watched those TV shows like Love It or List It, Fixer Upper, or Flip or Flop on channels like HGTV? What those TV shows tend to highlight is actually what we're talking about here. It's simply the art of buying a piece of real estate, fixing it up, or getting it up to the standard of what the market says it should look and feel like, and then turning around and listing it back on the market and selling it for a profit. Now, I personally think there's a lot of money to be made when you actually buy a piece of real estate at the right price and you put a little bit of work into it and you turn around and you put it back onto the market. There are definitely some cons also associated with this, and we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. Probably one of the bigger pros to this particular investment strategy happens to be that you can make money fairly quickly, okay? If you end up buying the property at a good enough price and you're able to get in and out of the project in a reasonable amount of time, and you put it on the market, and assuming you price it right and everything's done correctly, you can end up selling that property and making a pretty hefty profit without having to hold on to that property for 5, 10, or 15 years. Now, obviously, with anything where you can make a decent amount of money in a short period of time, there happens to be a lot of risk, and we'll save that for our cons here in just a minute. But, really, at the end of the day, I like this investment strategy. A big thing, again, comes down to you purchasing the property for the right price. One of my personal favorite things about Fixer Uppers is that it provides a lot of content opportunities. I've actually made several videos here on my YouTube channel highlighting the different investment properties that we're currently fixing and flipping. And it happens to be one of my personal favorite investment strategies. And at a large scale, if it's something you've ever thought about, fixing and flipping single-family properties or condos or things like that can open up a lot of different doors like development and things of that nature. So if you've ever wanted to be a developer, or you've seen those big high-rise buildings or those big apartment complexes all over wherever you live, then that is something that really can get opened up to you by getting into the world of fixing and flipping. But I would really say with this particular investment strategy, really the main pro is how quickly you can make money, okay? There's not a lot of other pros. because you don't end up holding the property for a long enough period of time to actually benefit from a lot of the things that you would normally benefit from by owning investment real estate, okay? So really the biggest pro is actually just getting paid. But of course, with anything that sounds too good to be true, doesn't always mean that it is, but it does typically mean that there is a little bit more risk involved, and there are definitely some things that you want to keep in mind. So one of the biggest cons that I can think of off the top of my head is that if you don't have the right connections, buying the property at the right price to begin with can be very difficult. What I've experienced over being a real estate investor for the last 7 years is that if you don't end up getting the property off market, meaning it never actually hit the market, it is very, very difficult to get a good price. Typically, by the time a property actually hits the market and is listed with a real estate agent, the entire world has seen it. And in a market like we're in right now, by the time the entire world has seen it, typically the investors end up bidding up the property so high that it isn't even a good deal anymore. And if you're not familiar with getting properties off market, it can be very difficult, and you've got to do a lot of marketing, or at the very least, you've definitely got to know the right people. So I would say that is probably one of the biggest cons with fixing and flipping a property. And like I talked about a little while ago, you don't make money in the sell, you make money in the buy, because it doesn't matter what you sell it for if you didn't buy it right. A property's only worth however much it is worth. So if you don't buy the property right, then you don't have a big enough spread to actually end up making money. And another big one with fixing and flipping properties is that if you buy a property and it takes too long to actually get it back on the market, and something were to happen crazy in the market, you could be stuck with that actual property. And you see a lot of people out there buying real estate on hard money or private money, right? And hard and private money typically will run you anywhere from 10 to 15% in interest. And the reason that those are even a thing is because for people like maybe you watching, where you want to go buy a property, you want to fix it up, but you don't have all that cash sitting in your bank account, there are hard money and private money lenders that'll lend you the money, but again, at a cost. And that cost happens to be very, very high. So if you end up getting stuck with a property where you end up owning it longer than you thought, you could end up actually being in a very bad situation if you're paying 10 to 15% in interest. So you really do have to put a little bit of thought into it, because if you end up buying a property and you end up having to hold on to it for longer than you anticipated, it can definitely eat into your profit margins. And then you really have to think about what you're going to do with the property. You might end up having to actually go refinance the property and get a conventional loan, because you're not going to be able to afford to pay the 10 or 15% over the long haul. And now you've got to really figure out what rental rates are doing in the area to see if you can even hold on to it as a rental property. So one of my biggest tips for you, if you've ever thought about being one of those people that goes in and buys property and fixes it up and puts it back on the market, is that you really, really, really just have to buy the property right, okay? And another big thing that I would encourage you to do is don't start with some great big project. You want to start with a cheaper project in the beginning so you can get in and out of the project as quickly as possible. Another big con with this strategy of real estate investing is that there are always unknowns that you never planned on in a million years. And if you've watched any of those TV shows, then you'll see it feels like almost every episode they run into a big problem. They run into foundation issues. They run into roof issues, air conditioner issues, all sorts of different issues that didn't come up in the inspection report. And now all of a sudden, at the last minute, in the 12th hour, you've got to figure out what you're going to do. So again, my advice to you would be to really, really think about it before you buy the property, and make sure you factor in those different unknowns. One of the biggest things that I always do is factor in about 10% for variables that I can't control, right? Things that go wrong, maybe the market takes a different direction, whatever the case is, I always factor at least 10% for those variables that are completely out of my control. But let's just keep moving along, and let's talk about our next step on the list, and that is the BRRRR method, okay? No, it is not cold in here, okay? That was a horrible, horrible joke. So if you wouldn't mind, just go ahead and just smash the like button and give me a little bit of pity.
Let's kick some ice.
So anyways, the BRRRR method, actually spelt out as just BRRRR, is actually the method essentially where you buy, you renovate, you rent, you refinance, and you repeat. So I'm just going to break it down really quick. This happens to be a very popular investment strategy in 2020, and there's a lot of people on social media talking about the BRRRR method. So first and foremost, obviously you're buying the property, right? And typically when you buy real estate, you're normally buying real estate that needs a little bit of work. And the little bit of work could really mean anything, right? It could be lipstick on a pig remodel, meaning you're just doing like carpet and you're doing paint and you're doing fixtures. or it can be a full-blown remodel, okay? It could be the kitchen, it could be the bathrooms, it could be the roof, the foundation, really whatever it is. So with the BRRRR method, it is essentially a couple of methods that we've already talked about all in one, right? You're buying the property, you're rehabbing the property because the property needed a little bit of work, and then what you're doing is you're renting out the property. So it goes back to point number one where we talked about buying and holding, right? You're actually doing that here. You are going to buy and hold, but at the end of the day, there's a little bit more to it. So now that you've bought the property, you renovated the property and made it look good to where a family can move into it, now you found the tenant, you're renting it out, and they love the home, okay? So you own this property that you bought below market value, and you've created a little bit of equity in the property because you did buy it at the right price, like we've been talking about, right? You put a little bit of money into it, and now you are all in at a lower number than what the property is actually worth. But you didn't turn around and put it back on the market. Again, you rented it out instead. Then what you're going to do is you're going to do a cash out refinance, okay? And a cash out refinance has gotten way more popular over the last couple of years. I'm sure maybe it used to be popular, but with everybody on social media now, everybody seems to be talking about it. And all a cash out refinance really is a mortgage refinancing option in which the new mortgage is for a larger amount than the existing loan amount in order to convert home equity into cash. And the last step is to repeat all of the previous steps, okay? So what the BRRRR method means is that you go in and you do this time after time after time. And you're taking the cash that you pulled out of this property typically to reinvest into the next property. And you're doing that over and over and over again, okay? And I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this particular method. And we'll break that down, and I'm going to explain exactly why I like and why I don't like it here in just a minute. But really the big takeaway here is that a lot of people do this to build their investment portfolio, right? They want to own a bunch of properties, but they can't afford to go out and buy a bunch of properties all at once. They want to fix and flip, but they also want to buy and hold, okay? So they're able to kind of do multiple things at once while building an investment portfolio and ultimately building up their net worth. And this is a really, really popular investment strategy as we've been talking about. If you're familiar with BiggerPockets at all, they actually call this investment strategy the Smart Investor's Investment Cycle. And I do actually like this particular investment strategy. Really my biggest complaint and the biggest drawback for me, and again, this is 100% my opinion, okay? So don't be going down and commenting below that I don't know what I'm talking about or that I should go, read a bunch of articles that familiarize myself with real estate investing, okay? Just understand this is my opinion. I've seen a lot of people that they'll do the BRRRR method or they'll do methods just like this, and what ends up happening is they end up getting over leveraged over the long haul. And if you look back at the last crash, a lot of the people that lost everything were people that were over leveraged, meaning they owed too much money on all of their properties and they owned way too many properties. So when the bank came in and the bank said, hey, we're pretty much getting screwed here, we need to go ahead and have you pay up, they didn't have the money to pay up, right? They were completely over leveraged. They didn't have enough equity in the property. So when property values went down, all of a sudden they had negative equity in all of their properties and they didn't have a business or anything that was cash flowing to actually go to the bank and give them money to get their properties back out of where essentially they wouldn't have that negative equity anymore. So that really is the only thing that scares me a little bit, okay? I would just be very careful and understand that you always want a little bit of equity, right? Equity is a good thing. And in my opinion, even owning a couple of properties outright, literally paid in cash, is never a bad idea, right? Now understand that there is such thing as good and bad debt, okay? And a lot of people will tell you that the BRRRR method is good debt, right? But all I'll say again is it can be bad debt if something bad were to ever happen. So I personally like to make sure that I think about that long and hard, and that over the long run I end up having multiple properties that I own in cash. So moving right along right now, our fourth investment strategy happens to be what they call wholesaling. And you might be familiar with wholesaling. I know, again, there's a lot of people that have been talking about it, okay? Another good term, I guess, for wholesaling would be called flipping contracts. And that in a nutshell is all wholesaling really is. It is essentially the art of where you go to a seller and you end up getting the property under contract at below market value. Then you turn around and you find a buyer during your inspection period where you resell your rights to purchase that property to the end buyer to make a profit. And like any other investment strategy, there are a lot of different reasons, again, why a seller would want to sell below market value. So all you really are with wholesaling, in my opinion, is you're a very good marketer, okay? So if you're good at marketing, this could be a great way for you to get into real estate, and it could be, like what we talked about a little while ago, a great stepping stone to eventually get into the BRRRR method, the buy and hold method, the fix and flip method, or any of the other methods that we're going to be talking about. So again, you're buying the property at way below market value and essentially just reselling it to the buyer at slightly above where you have it at. Now, the buyer is still buying it below market value, and you want to make sure that you leave plenty of meat on the bone for the buyer, because a lot of times the buyer is going to end up being a fix and flipper or a buy and hold landlord type of investor. And the biggest problem that I see with wholesaling is a lot of the wholesalers nowadays are getting way too greedy, and they're not leaving enough meat on the bone for the actual end buyer, and that ends up making the world of wholesaling just look bad in general. So just make sure, if you ever think about getting into wholesaling, that you buy the property from the seller at a deep enough discount to end up selling it to the buyer where he still has enough of a discount to turn around and make a profit, okay? So again, at the end of the day, it's a very popular form of real estate investing. And again, you're not buying the real estate in wholesaling, right? So to be very clear, all you're doing is you're getting it under contract as the buyer, but you're reselling the rights to the contract to the actual buyer. And typically, you're doing this during what they call an inspection period, which you have when you buy any type of real estate at all. So anytime you go to actually purchase a piece of real estate, you always get an inspection period, okay? Depending on where you live, they either call it an inspection period or you're used to hearing it referred to as the due diligence period, okay? So you always have that. It's very common. Now, during that period, you're able to actually sell your rights to the contract without any real risk, okay? Your earnest money has not gone hard yet, which is essentially like it's like your down, it's not really your down payment, it's more of like your hold, okay? It's like, you know, when you go to buy something on like OfferUp or Craigslist or something, you'll put like a little deposit down. So that way they hold it for you, okay? That is essentially what your earnest money is. Here's the way I like to think about it, okay? Think about wholesaling as more of a service. Remember how I talked about you being like a marketing person? Well, that in a nutshell is all you're doing, right? Typically when you look at a lot of landlords or a lot of fix and flippers, they don't have the time to go out and find property, right? They're not very good marketers. They're very good at contracting, they're very good at fixing up properties, they're good at being a good landlord, but a lot of times they're not good at going out to the masses of people and talking sellers in to essentially selling at a discount. Now again, you are doing this out of good faith, right? And there's a lot of sellers that do need to sell at a discount. So the service is actually very good if done properly, okay? Again, the seller ends up winning, right? They need to sell at a discount. They need to move on with their life. For whatever reason, they need to sell their property. And the buyer needs another investment property. Now that service you get paid for. I would say this is a very popular investing strategy when it comes to real estate for people that essentially don't have a lot of money. Maybe they don't have very good credit, maybe they even have bad credit, or maybe they're just not familiar with the real estate industry at all, and they need to start somewhere before they go out and take a ton of risk. I will say that wholesaling actually ends up getting a bad rep a lot of times, and all I'll really say is this. If done properly, again, you are providing a very valuable service to the marketplace. Again, you're helping the seller out genuinely, right? And they're able to walk away from a potential bad situation as a winner. And you're able to help the investor find their next property without having to go out and do a ton of marketing. It can be very, very valuable. And also you bring value to the neighborhood, right? You're bringing value to the property. You're allowing the investor to fix up the property, flip it, and put it back onto the market. And otherwise, that might not have ever happened. Somebody might not have ever found that deal, right? So at the end of the day, it can be very valuable. A couple of reasons that a seller might want to sell at a discount might include some of the following, okay? They might be getting a divorce. They might have lost their job and they can't make their house payments anymore. Maybe somebody passed away and they inherited the property. Maybe the property had fire damage. Maybe it had water damage. There are so many different reasons as to why somebody would need to sell at a discount, and they still end up being a winner. Really, one of the biggest cons is that you're not building up your asset portfolio. So over the long haul, you're not really building up your net worth, okay? You might make a lot of money, but again, money's not really that great at the end of the day if it's just sitting in your bank account, okay? Because it is losing money by just sitting there due to pretty much inflation. And another con is that not every market is great for wholesaling. There's a lot of markets out there where there's just not enough distressed sellers, in order for it to be worth it. So if you live somewhere like the Hollywood Hills or Bel Air, or you're in a really high-end area, then it might not actually be that great, because at the end of the day, a lot of those people probably are not likely to end up in a distressed situation where they have to sell their property at a discount. And there have actually been a couple of different markets that have made it very difficult for wholesalers to even wholesale, okay? And again, it isn't illegal in any way, shape, or form, but there are a couple of markets that have definitely put down some really, really hefty restrictions because there was a lot of wholesalers that just screwed it up for everybody. They were getting greedy, trying to make way too much money with no knowledge of the real estate industry, not leaving enough meat on the bone for the end investor, and at the end of the day, it causes a lot of people to complain, and in multiple different markets throughout the country, there's again a lot of hefty restrictions on actually wholesaling. But I do think wholesaling can be a very great way to get your foot into the door with real estate investing, okay? So definitely check it out if you haven't ever heard of it before. I've made a lot of videos on my channel. So again, all you gotta do, smash the like button, okay? Subscribe to my channel, go check out some of the other videos where I talk about that, and you can decide if that's a good investment strategy for you. And my fifth and final personal favorite investment strategy when it comes to real estate is a REIT, otherwise known as a real estate investment trust. A real estate investment trust is essentially just a company that owns, operates, or finances income-generating real estate. Similar to like a mutual fund, a REIT just basically takes a bunch of money from various different investors and then turns around and takes that money and purchases various different types of real estate. And most REITs are actually publicly traded, so you can actually buy them through the New York Stock Exchange, and you can get paid out in dividends. And these are very good for people that just want to side hustle. They just want to take their money and have their money make them more money, but they're very busy. Maybe you have a 9-to-5 or you have another business that you're running day to day, and you just have a little bit of money sitting around where you want to take the money and make a little bit of money on your money. This is really great for people that don't want to get down into the trenches and actually learn real estate. They don't want to manage real estate. They don't want to hire a property manager. They don't want to manage the property manager, okay? They don't really want to do anything at all. They just want their money to work for them. So I guess the biggest pro to a REIT is that you don't have to spend a ton of time or a ton of energy actually investing into real estate, right? You don't have to learn about it or anything of that nature. You don't have to go finance a property, you don't have to renovate a property or have tenants in your property, manage the property, you don't have to fix and flip the property, you don't have to network with a bunch of real estate agents, you don't have to learn a ton about real estate, you don't really have to do anything, right? All you gotta do is find a good REIT, take your money and invest it. So this allows you to actually get the benefit of owning real estate or having money in real estate. You get to take advantage of compound interest, which again, I talk about all the time. I believe to be the eighth wonder of the world, and you get to still keep your day job or do whatever it is that you like to do. And the cons are kind of all over the place because people have a lot of different opinions about REITs for whatever reason. And some people love them and other people hate them. And I don't think there's any real cons, okay? I would just say that my con is that I actually like real estate. I really enjoy it. I like looking at properties. I like, really having that visionary mindset when I go to look at a property and I get to kind of see through the smoke in the mirror to see what the property could look like in the future. And I really enjoy that process, right? I really enjoy the art of helping people. I enjoy representing people, buyers and sellers, as I am a real estate agent here in Arizona. And I pretty much enjoy all things real estate. So for me personally, I don't really want a REIT where I just sit back and do nothing, okay? That isn't my ideal investment strategy. However, I do have a little bit of money in Fundrise and other various platforms, which I've actually made videos on, so definitely go check those out. And there's a lot of great ones out there, okay? I just personally, it'll never be my primary focus when it comes to investing my money. Wow, okay, that pretty much wraps up the video. Now, I really just want you to know that there are literally 100 different ways to invest in real estate. And I wanted to make a very basic video, okay? So this was like the most basic video that I could possibly make, breaking down my 5 top favorite investment strategies when it comes to real estate in 2020, okay? So take it with a grain of salt, and also drop into the comment section below. If there's one that you want me to elaborate on a little bit more, I would love to do that. Also, if you want me to make a video where maybe I talk about my top 10 or my top 20 or even the top 50, okay, I would love to do that as well. So just let me know. And if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it. You just smash the like button, as it really does help us out with the YouTube algorithm. There's also a couple of links down below. Definitely go check those out. I actually have a program where I teach you how to do different real estate investing strategies. I just released it. It's brand new, so go check that out. And there's a couple of other various links down there as well that, I would appreciate if you go check out, but you definitely don't have to. So I appreciate you in general for just watching the video, and I really look forward to actually seeing you in the next one.